Boy, don't fucking play with me, man. Don't fucking play with my motherfucking child, nigga. Ever, nigga.
New footage of T.I. and Charleston White's explosive IG Live just dropped, and it's wild. What started as a simple chat turned into a heated clash filled with insults, accusations, and pure chaos. But the truth behind this confrontation runs deeper than what you saw on screen, and I have every detail they don't want you to know. When celebrity parenting hits the public ring. The confrontation between T.I. and Charleston White begins, first and foremost, with the child of a celebrity being pulled into the public arena. When Charleston White directed harsh remarks at T.I.'s son, King Harris, what unfolded was not merely a diss or a challenge, it became a question of boundaries. The parent, T.I. Joe, found himself forced into a highly visible role of protector, not just as a private father, but as a public figure responding on social media. What would typically be a personal family matter was transformed into content, spectacle, and public debate. The child of a celebrity, by virtue of his lineage, becomes a public figure by association, and that changes the dynamics of critique.
Nigga said he was gonna shoot my son in the throat like Trayvon Martin. Watch him die.
The issue at hand is, how much commentary is acceptable when the target is a celebrity's child? In this case, White criticized King's upbringing, his appearance, and his behavior. He mocked his background, his comfort, and insinuated a lack of authenticity. For T.I., this was more than a personal slight. It threatened to undermine his familial brand, his legacy, his reputation. He responded live, stating bluntly, "Don't fuck with my child." By doing so, he elevated the matter from personal insult to a public stand. This dynamic reveals the tension celebrity parents face in modern culture. On one hand, they must manage public persona, business interests, and legacy. On the other hand, they face criticism when their children appear in the spotlight, even if only tangentially. The traditional expectation that a parent will protect their child is magnified when the child is also part of a brand or legacy. The public commentary on King didn't only impact him, it reverberated through T.I.'s identity and public image. Meanwhile, from White's viewpoint, targeting the offspring of a high-profile figure was tactical. It guaranteed a reaction, it forced the parent into the arena. By focusing on King, White ensured that T.I. could not ignore the commentary without appearing to abandon his child. The fallout became a spectacle. Thus, the public commentary became not just provocation, it was strategic. The child of celebrity, in such cases, becomes collateral in a public conflict, raising questions about fairness, boundaries, and responsibility within commentary culture. Clout wars and #feuds. When the dispute escalated, it did so largely in the digital domain. Instagram lives, YouTube clips, reposted screenshots, trending hashtags. The feud between T.I. and Charleston White showcases how modern hip-hop beefs are as much about social media presence as they are about lyrics or physical confrontation. What once might have been limited to a diss track or radio call-out now plays out in real time on live streams and viral posts. The online culture around Clout has changed the structure of conflict. It's no longer simply who wins the battle, it's who gets the most attention. In this case, White's public jabs at King ignited a reaction from T.I. that was delivered live. The parent artist broadcasted his response on Instagram Live, stating his position publicly, directly, and visually. That alone transformed the dispute into an event. Prior to this moment, the commentary might have stayed in the comment sections. But by choosing live format, the parties made the conflict accessible for replay, trimming, screenshotting, and redistribution. The audience became not just witnesses, but participants. The question emerges, are these battles substantive or performative? Neither totally. White's commentary may have been genuine in sentiment, but he was clearly aware of the reaction it would provoke. T.I.'s response, though arguably protective, also unfolded in public and served to amplify his stance. The synergy between conflict and audience means that every insult, every screenshot, every comment becomes part of the content economy. In effect, feuds become platforms.
T.I. challenged you to a one-on-one fight.
Oh, he did?
Well,
I accept.
That's what's being said online.
I accept. Yeah, I accept.
Wait, so on the phone, was it that energy or what energy was it on the phone?
Oh yeah, on the phone, they didn't have that energy, but I took it there. It's because I started out trying to be civil.
For fans and onlookers, the online format changes the stakes. The public watches, comments, shares, chooses sides. The conflict between these men isn't just personal, it's communal, digital, virality-driven. The screen becomes the battleground. In this environment, authenticity, performance, strategy, and reaction merge. The question becomes not just who said what, but what did the public see, share, and believe. The culture of clout, beefs in hip-hop now thrives online, and this case is a textbook demonstration. From insult to threat, The exchange between T.I. and Charleston White didn't remain confined to insults alone. White threatened to put King in jail and made public statements about his upbringing. T.I. responded with warnings about defending mine and putting everything on the line for family. At this level, the conflict moves from purely verbal to potentially punitive, legal, or personal risk. When someone issues a public threat or challenge, even if rhetorical, the line between words and actions blurs. The question becomes, when does public insult become a real danger? In such high-profile feuds, the escalation is often predictable. Insults become threats, threats become live challenges, and the live challenges raise the possibility of physical or legal conflict. T.I. publicly claimed that he had family who would risk their lives and freedom to protect his. White publicly called out King and challenged T.I. to a confrontation. These public statements mobilized support, fan bases, commentary, but they also signaled that the conflict is beyond social media chatter. For the individuals involved, the stakes escalate. T.I., as a father and public figure, cannot ignore threats to his son without risking both personal and brand damage. White, by escalating, tightens the spotlight on himself and forces a reaction. But from a broader vantage point, when threats are made publicly, the possibility of misinterpretation, backlash, legal exposure, or violence increases. The screen preserves the moment, live, recorded, shared. That means accountability increases.
You know, you were pretty much, you were saying T.I. was a rat.
Well, yeah. Man, everybody knows.
Thus, the line between insult and escalation is one of context and consequence. A joke posted offline is not the same as a threat posted live. In hip-hop culture, where standing on business, image, and credibility matter, insults are rarely random. They carry implications. The moment T.I. publicly answered, "Don't play with my child," the war zone changed. This public interface of threat, defiance, and reputation management shows how conflicts once confined to studios or playgrounds now project into the spotlight and raise real questions about where we draw boundaries between entertainment and harm. Legacy on the line. T.I. has cultivated a long career, a brand, a legacy that extends beyond music into business and culture. His son King is not simply a private adolescent, but part of that legacy. When T.I.'s son is attacked publicly, the assault is not only on the child, it bounces back onto the parent's reputation. The critique leveled by White, that King lacked authentic street experience, that his upbringing was privileged, was in effect a critique of T.I.'s narrative, from the streets to success, but somehow still credible. For T.I., this hit at a core weakness.
Guy say he'll put his foot so far up my ass, sound like he need to kick that little yellow boy's ass. Instead of kicking my ass, sound like you should have been putting your foot up in that boy's ass. Maybe his ass will be a little bit more respectful.
When White turned the silver spoon insinuation toward King, he challenged the narrative of earned respect. In hip-hop circles, authenticity often links to struggle, survival, adversity. To suggest that someone hasn't lived those struggles is to delegitimize them. For King, being born into privilege and celebrity essentially made him vulnerable. He had to prove he wasn't simply benefiting from his father's success. Each critique of his upbringing echoes back to T.I.'s ability to maintain his image as one who came from the bottom up. The family dynamics are complicated. A child of fame is under a constant public microscope. A misstep by the child becomes a public spectacle. For T.I., stepping into this fight publicly signaled that protecting his child meant protecting his brand. His legacy remained intact only as long as his narrative remained credible to his audience. When King became criticism fodder, it wasn't just father versus commentator, it was legacy versus challenge. For the audience watching, the narrative becomes layered. King symbolizes privilege, opportunity, lineage. White symbolizes survival, street cred, self-made status. The conflict morphed into something deeper, a clash of identities, generational shifts, and the question of whether legacy passes down or poses liability.
A little bit more respectful. You was a little disrespectful motherfucker like that too, little long head motherfucker. You ain't no tough motherfucker, nigga. You a...
For celebrities, legacy isn't only about what you built. It's about how well the next generation navigates the world you created. This dispute highlights how family and brand, reputation, and narrative intersect in modern culture. Live, loud, and uncut. The format of this feud is as revealing as the content itself. The use of live streams transformed what might have remained a private dispute into a full-blown public spectacle. One side fires off commentary on YouTube or Instagram, and the other side responds in real time. Not through statements, but through live broadcasts. In the clash between T.I. and Charleston White, the confrontation unfolded like digital theater. White critiquing King Harris through his usual shock value commentary, and T.I. responding in an Instagram live session, complete with visuals, emotions, and a live audience numbering in the thousands. The medium wasn't just a platform, It became the stage, the arena, and the message itself. Live streaming changes the energy of any dispute. Once the camera starts rolling, adrenaline spikes, words sharpen, and every gesture becomes a performance. There's no room for second takes. Every facial expression, every tone of voice, every pause is captured, shared, and clipped into bite-sized content. For T.I., a veteran in controlling narratives through music and interviews, stepping into an unfiltered, real-time confrontation signaled intensity. A father defending his child, not a celebrity crafting an image. For Charleston White, who thrives on provocation and spectacle, the live format was home turf. His brand depends on unpredictability and reaction, and going live guaranteed both. What makes the live stream format powerful and dangerous is its combination of immediacy and permanence. Once live, the footage exists forever. Even if deleted, copies circulate. Comments flood in, fueling escalation. The performer feels compelled to respond to the audience as much as to their rival. The chat becomes a chorus, encouraging more intensity. In this environment, restraint is rare. Every word is amplified by real-time validation, likes, emojis, facts, comments, pushing participants toward more extremes. The T.I. White clash illustrates how live streaming doesn't just show conflict, it creates it. The act of going live invites performance, and performance invites exaggeration. A conversation that might have ended with a private call instead turns into a headline-making showdown. Viewers interpret reactions as authenticity, but in reality, it's a blurred mix of emotion and entertainment. Is the rage genuine or strategic? Is the protection paternal or performative? Online, those distinctions dissolve. When T.I. defended his son on live video, his raw emotion resonated with audiences, but it also fed the cycle. His defense became content for others to dissect, remix, and monetize. White, in turn, capitalized on that momentum, using clips from the live to reinforce his narrative. The audience played both sides, screenshotting moments, reposting sound bites, keeping the feud alive long after the broadcast ended. Live streaming in this sense is the new battleground of public confrontation. It merges reality and performance, sincerity and strategy. Every participant becomes both a fighter and a filmmaker. For celebrities like T.I., it exposes vulnerability. For provocateurs like White, it's opportunity. And for audiences, it's irresistible. A modern coliseum where outrage, loyalty, and entertainment collide in real time. In this feud, the live format didn't just document the conflict, it defined it. What began as words became spectacle. The private became public. The parental became performative. And the feud, once fleeting, became immortal, captured forever in the endless loop of streams, clips, and re-uploads that define the digital age. Clicks over conscience. Within this dispute, both sides deploy deliberate media tactics, calculated moves within the ecosystem of attention. Charleston White, a self-styled social commentator and provocateur, has built his career on pushing boundaries. By targeting King Harris, the son of a major hip-hop figure, White ensured visibility. He wasn't just calling someone out, he was creating content designed to provoke, trend, and monetize outrage. He understood that the quickest path to viral traction was through controversy, especially one involving a high-profile family like T.I.'s.
Long enough to see what you have and notice they don't have it, they become jealous. Rarely, but sometimes the world does us a favor.
T.I., on the other hand, made a crucial choice when he decided to respond publicly. By addressing White through Instagram Live, tagging him directly, and expressing his anger before millions, he transformed what could have been a private grievance into a public event. In today's digital landscape, that move meant every moment would be captured, clipped, reposted, and discussed across multiple platforms. Suddenly, the argument wasn't confined to one corner of the internet. It became a trending spectacle. Every response video, tweet, or reaction post became part of a growing digital narrative that fueled engagement on both sides. White's tactics were strategic. By going after King, someone younger, less media savvy, and not yet equipped to defend himself publicly, White forced T.I. into an impossible position: either stay silent and appear weak, or respond and amplify the drama. White knew this. His provocations are less about genuine critique and more about social leverage, using outrage as a marketing tool. For him, every reaction from a major celebrity is a win. More clicks, more followers, more attention. For T.I., the stakes were different. His public defense of his son came from a place of paternal instinct. But once online, that instinct became content. His words, tone, and expression were dissected and remixed across the web. What began as a defense of family morphed into a digital war of perception. And perception drives narratives in the entertainment industry. Media outlets picked it up. YouTube channels broke it down. The result was a full-blown content cycle sustained by outrage and emotion. The tension in this situation exposes a troubling reality. Responsibility in the age of virality is murky. When a public figure attacks another's family, particularly a child, the ethical lines blur. King did not ask to be a part of the spectacle, but in the digital era, proximity to fame can make anyone fair game. Influencers, blogs, and viewers feed the cycle because conflict is currency. Outrage sells, reactions generate income. Every like, comment, and share reinforces the economy of attention that keeps such disputes alive. In the end, what we witness is not just a feud, it's a case study in the monetization of conflict. Both parties become unwilling co-creators in a performance driven by engagement metrics. The personal gets commercialized, the private becomes public. The human cost, a child's dignity, a father's peace, a community's example, becomes secondary to the spectacle. In this sense, the T.I. and Charleston White dispute transcends simple drama. It becomes a mirror reflecting how modern media turns tension into entertainment, and how quickly empathy can be replaced by algorithmic applause. Beyond the screen, what begins in cyberspace doesn't always stay there. The public insults and threats exchanged between T.I. and Charleston White raise real-world implications. At the heart of it, when White publicly called for legal consequences against King Harris, and when T.I. declared his readiness to spare no expense on his son's behalf, the rhetoric crossed into potential real-life risk. Social media records those moments. They become evidence, clips, screenshots, and that exposure increases the possibility of legal scrutiny or physical consequences. In the hip-hop world, there is a persistent history of public feuds turning into physical violence. Live-stream threats, clips that go viral, roasting gone too far. Once the audience and the record exist, the boundary between performance and actual intent becomes thinner. For T.I. and White, the screen not only carried the insults, it preserved them. Both men became vulnerable to public interpretation, brand damage, and potential legal consequences. A threat made on live video might serve as evidence. A parent's public warning could be put under legal microscope. For T.I., who is simultaneously a father, public figure, and businessman, this conflict creates dual exposure, personal safety, and brand liability. Beyond the immediate participants, there is broader community risk. The normalization of live-streamed confrontations, public threats, and viral insults fosters a culture where conflict becomes content and the audience is complicit. When children or families are drawn into these spectacles, the consequences extend beyond clicks and likes to cultural patterns and risk normalization. It raises the question, when does entertainment bleed into real life? What happens when a screenshot becomes the lead in a court case? When a challenge posted live evolves into danger or legal action? The real-world impact in these scenarios is significant, especially when family, legacy, and identity are involved. Consequently, the deterrents we assume, respect, discretion, privacy, are steadily eroding. In the digital age, insults broadcast live, threats posted publicly, responses captured for eternity, all shrink the room for resolution. One side might respond with legal action, the other might respond with retaliation. The cycle spins faster than ever before. This dispute serves as a warning. Online conflict can carry real legal and personal implications, and the line between a verbal beef and a disaster is far narrower than many acknowledge. In sum, while the clash between T.I. and Charleston White may on the surface appear as another celebrity-sized feud, it underscores a bigger truth. When social media becomes the arena, the podium, the courtroom, and the battlefield, the risks escalate. What begins with a comment or a challenge can ripple into consequences that affect futures, reputations, and even safety. The screen may seem detached, but the effect is anything but. Before you go, remember, this confrontation is far from over. What went down on IG Live might just be the start of a bigger clash between T.I. and Charleston White. The words, the reactions, the tension, it's building fast. If you want to see what happens next, the aftermath, the hidden motives, and how this feud escalates, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next face-off could change everything.